Today on Locked On Rockies, guest host, the future of Bud Black, and what's ahead for a tough road series for the Rockies. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast, joined by a special guest, not a guest, no more, the host extraordinaire of Locked On Rockies. Temporarily, I'm only going on vacation, but when I figured out who's going to cover the show, well, I had to go to the other Paul Francis that I know. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully while he is joining us all week. He's going to be filling in on the Locked On Rockies podcast. But before we even get to that, we got a Marlins series to get to. We got trade deadline talk. We got all sorts of Rockies storylines to follow. But Sully, I kind of wanted to kick things off here of what's your mindset going into you cover, for those who don't know, you're the host of Locked On MLB. You are your copy used to say the walking baseball encyclopedia.
Sure.
Sully knows his baseball, and now you're covering the 2023 Rockies. What are you hoping to see from this Rockies team during your week of paying a little bit more extra attention to this team, especially compared to what you already know?
Well, first of all, the Rockies did everything I wanted them to do as a native New Englander and lifelong Red Sox fan by taking 2 out of 3 from the Yankees the other day or the other week. So we all were Rocky fans that week. We were all big CJ Cron fans, and Jones, who had a huge home run in that series, and the walk-off by what's his name?
Alan Trejo.
Trejo. Thank you.
That's an important thing. It's these are young new Rockies having impacts. Nolan Jones, Alan Trejo's been around, but younger guys, and then of course CJ Cron, the big veteran bat. But man, the Yankees are in deep trouble, aren't they, Sully? They look dejected there in Colorado.
Well, yeah, and not just in Colorado, but the fact that they got swept by an Angels team that looked dead from the neck up. And now after the sweep, they realize, hey, we're as close to the wild card as the Yankees are. Why would we want to trade Ohtani? When you looked at that schedule they had, where they said we're going to play the A's, the Cardinals, the Orioles were obviously good, the Cubs, the Rocks, and the Angels, you think, okay, this is where we're going to feast. And they went 1-5 against the Rockies and the Angels, and they didn't fare well elsewhere. So, I mean, I'll tell you one of the things that I really enjoyed watching that series beyond just the Schadenfreude. I think the Yankees, I think they should be thinking about selling, quite frankly, or at least jettisoning parts who are going to be non-tendered and try to get, a few cans of Sprite. But the thing that was really enjoyable watching the Rockies team is there was an energy to them. There was an excitement to them. And, do I think that, they're not a great team. I know I don't have to tell you that, but they didn't seem dead from the neck up. And I do like the fact, and I understand the mentality is you have to jettison anyone over the age of 30 to try to get someone back. But, I had said that having someone like Chris Bryant on your team, why would you want to trade him? First of all, you've signed him to the deal, and he's made a commitment to stay there. You're never going to get back a superstar for him. So why not have a guy who's a former MVP, has World Series experience, who can basically polish his World Series ring, has enough money to send his great-grandchildren to law school, and can live in, work his days in Denver, which is a beautiful city. Why wouldn't you want to have someone like that on the team? In fact, you would almost pitch him to him. Said, you're playing the Todd Helton role now. Mm-hmm. You're playing the guy that we have all these young kids. We know there's someone who has been there, done that, and did it at a terrific level. And you saw that while they're not a great team, there wasn't a lot of giving up on the squad. Obviously, Diaz, had the highlight for the Rockies season.
I was there, man. It was so fun.
It was within a week. The Rockies season was Diaz being the hero of the All-Star game and winning 2 from the Yankees, especially that cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs final game, which I'm still not convinced is over.
Right.
And there's the mindset of, all right, you got lucky that you found Diaz in the little bin at Walmart for $5.95. But that being said, why wouldn't you want to have a veteran like him? You're not going to get a blue chipper back for him. And this is one of the things I think is kind of important. If you're not going to get a difference-making player back, then sometimes those trades are not worth making.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Diaz has more value as an all-star veteran that you can lean on a team. Maybe Bryant, who you won't get near his value for, anything, then the value he has is on the team. And you and I are going to talk a little bit about trades and everything like that. But my take on the team is it was refreshing to see that they were a team that clearly, got up for the game.
Yeah.
Clearly realized that, hey, this is our moment to play and matter for this year. And you see someone like Nolan Jones, who's you've seen on him on the Rockies prospects list. I think around the same time that Andres Galarraga was on the team. I think he was drafted when they were still playing in Mile High Stadium. I may be wrong. I may have to look that up. But to see him coming up and get a big hit like that and, do pretty well in his first, 40 or 50 games, however long he's been with the team, he's done okay. Yeah. And, there are some good pieces to the team, obviously, and this is a stunning turn of events with the Rockies. The issue is going to be their pitching.
Yeah.
But unlike previous teams where you think about like the Braves of the 90s, the Orioles of the, the 70s, the Dodgers of the 60s, and the Rockies their whole time. Those are the great pitching teams in the history of baseball. I put Kevin Ritz alongside Koufax and Jim Palmer and Greg Maddux. But they were fun. They were fun. And again, I also wonder how much this has to do with having a stable veteran manager like Bud Black. There is something to be said about having experience as a manager, and it's not all. I'm not an anti-analytics guy. First of all, I know I've got the gray hair. I know I look a little bit like Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four, maybe Paulie Walnuts with that little gray streaks that I've got. But I think there's a combination of old school and new school I think can work, and they were fun. They were fun, and they didn't give up, which is really in so many ways the only thing you can ask for a young team.
Yeah, and it's there's a couple of things with Chris Bryant. I just want him to take that step forward. He's not really he's a below average player when it comes to wins above replacement this year. His numbers seem to be down. The power's not there, but you are right. He's still that MVP. He's been there. He's done that. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field as much. That's the biggest frustration. Chris Bryant's got to be out there every day for the Rockies. And now you look at the injury report ahead of this Miami series. He's day-to-day again after he missed a month of this season with the bruised heel, I think it was. He missed only played in around 60 ball games last year. We just need more from Chris Bryant, but I think you're right. His experience is there. The Rockies do have the right veterans on the team. They just love to play those veterans over the young guys. So there's ways that are kind of blocking some of these young guys as well. So
that's the disadvantage of an old school manager like Bud Black.
And that's the big problem.
I understand. And that I could see why that could be frustrating. I mean, as of this recording, we're recording this you and I are recording this on the 20th of July, 2023, in case you're wondering which year. As of now, over the 2022 and 2023 season combined, Chris Bryant has played 105 games with the Rocks. He has 13 home runs in those 105 games, and his OPS is 770. Neither one of those are horrible, and neither one of those are particularly very good.
Not what you think Chris Bryant would be doing at Coors Field. I mean, he's hitting his home runs mostly on the road as well.
Yeah. I mean, I remember some people got on him for signing that huge contract with Colorado, of which I just think anyone who said that should just go kick rocks.
Get
Because
paid.
first of all, it's like, in terms of him wanting to stay loyal or to an organization or something, the Cubs traded him.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy who was a homegrown hero led him to the first World Series championship since Theodore Roosevelt was president. And you thought he was going to be a Cub for life. And even when they were selling everything that wasn't nailed down in Wrigleyville, I thought they're going to keep Bryant, right? They're going to keep Bryant, so he's at least the elder statesman of the team. And nope, send him off to San Francisco. And so when he was at that point, I said, well, hell, if this is just money, who's going to offer me the most money?
Yeah.
And as I said, he's got, if anyone's going to question his heart or his championship, just show your World Series ring with the Cubs in someone's face. So not a lot of people have this.
Yeah.
So I do not begrudge a man for signing a deal that pays him $28 million a year until the heat death of the universe.
Yeah.
But of course he is being paid for, he's being paid for past performance. He is being paid for his performance with the Cubs. But you're right. If he, there is a DH now. There wasn't when he, no, there was. When did the universal DH kick? I hate the universal DH. When did the universal DH kick in? Was that last year?
I think it wasn't. Didn't the pandemic basically usher it in? Was it 2020?
Yeah, but there was the one. I think the 1 year.
So
the year
2022.
after the pandemic.
Yeah, last year I think was the first time universal DH.
That's right.
Because
okay.
I think Germán Marquez was in a race for being the last Silver Slugger pitcher. I think he had a run for it.
No, it's because the lockout was after the 2021 season.
That's right.
And that was part of the collective bargain. And that was the way I was able to rationalize. I liked having each league be different.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that quirk.
That's right.
And I rationalized by saying, like, well, I would rather have baseball than no universal DH. So I've been able to grind my teeth. Although watching a National League game, I still get used to it. Here's the eighth hitter. So what are they going to do next? Oh, nothing. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just I got more beef with the runner on second. That's my.
The runner on second was fine for the COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well you know Goodfellas, but I always took it like the scene when Paulie takes Henry Hill aside about him selling drugs, that you had to do what you had to do when we were inside, but you knocked that off. And I was like, okay, we had to do that during the COVID year, but now knock it off.
Right.
I say tie after 12.
Yeah, I think why not embrace a tie? I don't really think it. People get so caught up.
If you're gonna have Ghost Runner, do it after 12. Give us a couple innings. Give us
the All-Star Game home run derby rule.
Well, I don't want a division title won because we're throwing batting practice to freaking, Giancarlo Stanton, so I'm sorry. I don't want to, I got to draw the line somewhere.
No, I'm with you. But
I got to just say that, you're talking about the Rockies, and you're talking about basically this team is put together in a way where there's some, new parts and there's some young parts, and putting those parts together, do you know what? That's like what you need to do with your car. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Rocks. But first, hey, we're going to talk a little bit about eBay Motors. Look at a championship team. It's all about making sure that each player is a perfect fit. Did you hear that, Bud Black? Sometimes we put young with new. And it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure that every part fits right the first time around. Just add your ride, and I always call my car my ride, to My Garage and look for the green check to know which part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. When you shop at eBay Motors, and with over 122 parts to choose from, eBay Motors is the place that you go back to over and over, because you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Sorry, Canada. Eligible items only. And exclusions apply.
That was a hell of a read. I loved that. Uh,
Let's keep hitting the bumpers. Let's keep hitting the bumpers.
Keep playing the classic. Sully, I kind of wanted to pick your brain on this because we talked a little bit about this. There are people that call for the firing of Bud Black. Right. And I think that there's some stuff that it's like, yes, for example, in that Yankees game, why Ezekiel Tovar swings at the first pitch, goes for the bunt after that, and then goes down instead of just laying down the bunt, moving the runner. The Rockies, there's just been some times where you just kind of scratch your heads, and then it is with the lineup construction. The Rockies need to get their young guys playing as much as possible, and not trading them is going to make that even more complicated. But I'm curious, though, Sully, do you think a change in manager is really what the Rockies need? I think it's more the change needs to come in the front office side, and maybe that trickles down into the manager, but I don't think Bud Black is costing the Rockies or holding the Rockies back.
I don't think so at all. And I was not a Bud Black fan when he was the manager of San Diego. I think he inherited a very good team from Bruce Bochy. But he did have a couple of years where he did a good job managing the squad. And he's had a couple of very good years, obviously, managing in Colorado. Here's why I don't look at. I can't pretend that I have dissected each day the same way that, like you. I hope you've been following it closer than me. I would be psychotic if I was.
Right.
I don't think Bud Black is the issue with this team for a couple reasons. First of all, you could resurrect John McGraw or Earl Weaver right now, and they're not winning with this roster. Okay. And any manager that you're bringing a manager for one of two reasons. You need someone to rebuild the club from because the person doing it is not going in the right direction, and that's where the lineup construction may be your argument against Bud Black, or you're doing it because you're on the verge of something great, and this is not the right person to have the car keys. I call that Grady Little syndrome. Now, I don't think the Rockies, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't think the Rockies are on the verge of a pennant. But I also don't think Bud Black is the person holding the team back. And I think that, like having Bryant on the team, just maybe having a little bit of stability on the team, even if it isn't heading to the pennant, having a little bit of stability on the squad is not exactly the worst thing in the world. He is a former manager of the year. He is a World Series champion player. He is someone with a baseball lifer. So when you come in and he's the one in the clubhouse, yeah, he's someone who should at least get the respect of everyone. And this is a team that, pieces are starting to be put together. And I don't think that, making a change with him, it would be a borderline panic move for a team that's not going anywhere. Now, if he was if this was a Bobby Valentine situation when he was managing the Red Sox, and that was like giving a pyromaniac a Zippo lighter, yeah, that's wrong. If this is a situation where he's lost the team, and everyone just can't stand the sight of him, and people are grumbling and screaming about having them go, that's a different thing. Or if Bud Black, who obviously has a very long resume and has taken, nearly took the Padres to, ironically, losing the greatest moment in Rockies history, which was the wild card game in 2007, but taking the Rockies to the postseason in back-to-back years, and won the Manager of the Year in 2010. I could see a team looking to make a veteran team looking to make a managerial team may look to someone like Bud Black. I could see him leaving the Rockies for greener pastures. I don't think he's going to be the Yankee manager anytime soon, but there are other teams out there that, I look at their managerial situation and say, yikes. I don't think Bud Black would be the worst manager in the world to do something like that. I'll just make one prediction. I have a feeling there may be a change in Seattle, especially the Mariners threw all this money at this team. They made the playoffs last year. They can't get out of their own way. A manager like Bud Black on a team where a lot of the pieces are already in place might not be the worst thing in the world. So if Bud Black leaves the team, I think it will probably be more on his own accord. Kind of like Bob Melvin when he took one look around and said, "Are you blowing this team up again?" to the Oakland management and said, "Yeah, we're trying to reenact the movie, Major League, and move the team out of here." And said, "Screw this! I'm going to San Diego where I can underachieve with a big payroll instead of being in Oakland where I can overachieve with a small payroll." It's weird. Being Bob Melvin is strange, but I don't think he's the problem. And I like stability when you're trying to rebuild a squad. I do think that, look, I think Aaron Boone has shown he should not be the manager of the Yankees. It would not stun me to see Buck Showalter leave. I think in a similar way as he's like, "I'm out of here." If Bud Black would manage in New York, I think they could pick worse people. I think they have.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I think that I think Bud Black is an interesting baseball lifer, and if you're trying to build a team, you could do worse. You can do a hell of a lot worse than having him be your manager.
yeah, and I think you kind of hit a good point there. Where when Bud Black came in and it was most successful, it was the good Rockies team where they had built successful teams. It's the Arenado, Story, LeMahieu teams with Marquez, Senza, Freeland, and John Gray in the rotation. So clearly the pieces were there for the Rockies, and Bud Black was able to. The offense has been the biggest issue under Bud Black's tenure. The Rockies have not been the Blake Street Bombers, and that's going to be on full, I think, a big full display this weekend here as the Rockies get ready to take on the Marlins. We're going to talk about that and get ready for this weekend series with Miami coming up here in segment number 3. Welcome back.
Bumpers.
I know you got more pizzazz. You're adding some more pizzazz. Sully here joining us here from Locked On MLB, but he's also taking over the big chair here on Locked On Rockies next week for a little. I'm going out on a little vacation. He's going to be bringing you your daily Rockies coverage, and it's going to start by this weekend here, gearing up to watch. Where the Rockies have historically struggled. We talked about it this week. The Rockies have won, I believe, less than 40 games all time in Miami. The Miami has dominated in Miami, whereas Colorado has dominated in Colorado. This is a Rockies team that needs to continue to increase their home runs here. And we were teasing before, Rockies offense, the big issue. And this is a Rockies team that's climbed their way close to 500 at home. But when you go on the road for the Colorado Rockies, as they get ready to go and start this series, they're 14-33 away from Coors Field. So Sully, who are you got your eye on for in this series? Maybe it's Marlins arms that the Rockies need to be concerned about, or who are you hoping for some Rockies to have some big series here?
Well, look at I think the biggest thing is you're catching the Marlins with their pants down. This is the Marlins for the first. Anyone who follows me on Sully Baseball, I keep track of something called the summer score. And the summer score is I keep track of all the days that a team is in a playoff spot, whether it's a wild card or a division lead, since Memorial Day. Memorial Day, I think you can never look at the standings before Memorial Day. But after Memorial Day, after about a third of the season gone by, then you say, okay, then you can look at the standings. And so each day you're on one of the playoff teams after Memorial Day, you get a point for every day in June, 2 points every day in July. It gets higher and higher as you go further. So you have the bigs. By the end of the year, you've seen if you give your fan base a summer. The Marlins were in a playoff spot starting on Memorial Day up until about 2 days ago. Now, they climbed back in today because they're idle and the Phillies lost. But they had a big chunk. In fact, for a while, they were on pace to host the wild card series in Miami. They have no prayer of catching Atlanta. I know that, and you know that. But something has happened. Actually, something's happened to both Florida teams in July as the Rays have fallen off a cliff, and the Marlins, who really just looked like they were putting everything together, even with Alcantara having a bad year.
Right.
I mean, Alcantara won the Cy Young Award last year, and deservedly so. He's having an off year. I'm calling it an off year because even though his win-loss record is terrible and his ERA is high, to his credit, he's going deep into games.
Yep.
He doesn't kill the bullpen. He'll let up 5 runs, but he'll pitch 6 or 7 innings. So in that sense, it's not a complete catastrophe. But you look at the team, and we're. Let me put it this way. I mean, are we doing our Luis Arise, is he going to hit 400 watch anymore? I mean, there's a couple elements of the team that have really cooled off over the last, month or so, and the Rockies are catching them at the right time. Kind of like when you caught the Yankees at a time where they didn't have Judge and their pitching staff was in absolute disarray. You have the good fortune of doing that, and also, let's call it the way it is. The Rockies don't have a lot of pressure right now.
Yeah.
And the Marlins have a huge amount of pressure right now. So when you're playing Lucy and also Goosey, and you look up and you see a team that's fighting for their lives, there's a little bit, you can play a little more relaxed. I mean, by the way, I'm not trying to knock Luis Arise. He's batting 376 with an OPS near 888. But remember, he was batting 390 something, and we were like, oh my God, look out! Someone find Ted Williams' frozen head. And they're now, their things have slowed down. The magic in Miami is not as strong as it was. So it would behoove the Rocks to take advantage of that.
Yep.
It would behoove the Rocks. It'd be nice to see Ryan McMahon's power come back. It'd be nice to see Bryant get a big, huge hit in the middle of it. But you saw Cron get a couple of huge hits recently. Obviously, Diaz is still, a good, solid player. And it'd be nice to see, the Trejos and the Joneses and some of those other players, Tovar and all them who may not be as familiar with Miami, to be able to take advantage of some of that. I don't know who the starters are going to be at this point.
Rockies don't have a starter listed for tomorrow. That's Rockies pitching staff is completely decimated. Austin Gomber, the only healthy Rocky starter left on the roster. Rockies did go with Chris Flexen, signed him to a minor league deal. Haven't heard anything about coming up, but we'll see if that happens. Signed to an Albuquerque deal. But the Rockies, no starter yet, at least as of recording. Could be a bullpen game there before Austin Gomber taking the bump later on in that series, I believe.
I'll tell you, Paul, let me tell you another thing that's going to come in their advantage, at least in this series against Miami, is that the trade deadline's coming up in just a few weeks. And oddly, the most valuable players the Rockies have to trade are pitchers, which is a weird thing. But, Bard, who I love, it's a great story. You could get something from him. You could get something for Brad Hand. There's a couple of these relievers, you can get something for them. Maybe Justin Lawrence can get you a good player back in return.
See, I think Lawrence is the one they hold on to. I think Lawrence fits in with that. But
fair enough.
I think all those veteran, Brent Suter is another option that you have.
Right.
He just came back. There's plenty of hey, they're not going to be the anchor to your bullpen, but is your bullpen going to get more depth and better when you add these guys? Yeah, because they've shown success this year. And you mentioned one thing that's good about Sandy is not leaning into that bullpen too much. This is a Rockies bullpen that statistically at times has been great, but have unfortunately had to be turned to because the lack of depth at starting pitching, and then some of the starters the Rockies have aren't going 2-3 innings. They're getting turned to in the third, the fourth sometimes, in too much work. But the Rockies bullpen took down the Astros in a game. The Rockies used 7 pitchers in a game at Coors Field.
And so look how they shut down the Yankees in Coors too. By the way, I got to just say there's something. We'll get back to everything, but there was something about there was a weird sort of Schadenfreude justice of the Yankees firing their hitting coach and bringing in J. Jonah Jameson lookalike Sean Casey to be the new hitting coach. And of course, with a break in the All-Star game, so everyone's a little fresher. And they said, here's the deal. We're going to Coors Field, the easiest park to hit in, going up against one of the worst pitching staffs. and everyone rested and relaxed from, post All-Star game, and they're going to put up a big, fireworks display in Coors, and it's going to be like, oh, it's a genius. He's a genius. Look at how he's turned the hitting around. And the fact that strategy just belly flopped. There's something just so delicious about that. I mentioned the potential trade bait for this reason. They're going to Miami with those pitchers. They still have those veteran pitchers in their bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Once the trade deadline goes, and let's say they traded away, Hand and Suter and Bard, heaven help them going forward. The last third, they are gonna. I think you and I may be in their pen for a little while. It's gonna be the 14th caller. In fact, that's gonna be our. I'm gonna do my trivia contest. Whoever gets the trivia question right gets to pitch an inning of relief in a real, Rockies game. They're going to be watching the movie The Rookie and scouting as many high schools for. Is there someone who wants to live their dream? Because
somebody out there just hurling.
That's a great movie, by the way. The Rookie with Dennis Quaid is a really great movie. But I remember when I saw it in the theater with my buddy Julius Sharp, who's a great, wonderful writer and comedian. We walked out. We were both sobbing because we're humans. But I turned to him and said, "Was that a beautiful story about never giving up on your dreams, or was that an indictment on the Tampa Bay Devil Rays who said, I don't know where to get the pitch. Why don't you, school teacher,
just call him up. He
come on. I don't care. You're old. You're teaching. You've given. It doesn't matter. Let's go. We need arms. Let's go."
I'll elect with the feel good story. I think, but yeah, it's. I think some of the biggest misconceptions people have about the Rockies is they're this offense team and there's no pitching. Yet when you really break it down and you look at it, the bullpen and
that's pretty good.
And like Austin Gomber has a tough Rockies tenure, but has been the only key piece there and has been mostly successful this year. I just think though the Rockies got to sell as much as possible. I mean, it's just. As much as the right veterans, the right guys can help the Rockies right now to catch up. I mean, the problem with the Rockies now is you're not just catching the Dodgers anymore. You got to catch the Diamondbacks, who are a team that kind of are the young, exciting, fun, who I want the Rockies to be, full of young guys that steal bases, that have great, and Arizona plays with some, altitude issues, offensive friendly stuff, type of stuff, not as much as the Rockies, obviously, and the Giants always going to be there. They will never until I know it's not an odd year or it's not an even year, but they're still floating around. Padres, you never know. The Padres, we'll just keep laughing at them. But to get up to a division title or even in the wild card, you got to be better than your division, and the gap between the rest of the NL West and the Rockies seems like one of the biggest in all of the divisions in baseball.
Well, then you just got to keep piling those talent up. I mean, you got to just cross your fingers, because every once in a while, like an eclipse, it does all line up, and it will line up again for Colorado.
Yep, so we'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, but
hey, Rockies fans, I gotta get used to talking to your Rocky fans.
Yeah, take it away.
Hey, I'm next week. The Paul's not going to be here, but I'm your pal Sully. I know I'm going to be sitting in for a couple of these shows that I'm going to host here at the luxurious Locked On MLB studios right now in Palo Alto, California, and so we're going to be talking. I am going to be, Paul's going to make a cameo or two, where we're going to talk a little bit about the future and some of the young rocks who are percolating through the system. And I'm also going to be we're going to be covering the games, but I have a segment that I'm making for an upcoming Locked On Rockies episode, where we're going to be talking a little bit about the alternate history of Denver baseball. Yes, there were several times that there was a team that almost came to the city of Denver before the formation of the Rockies in 1992. Denver was always clearly a wonderful sports city. Several of my cousins grew up in Colorado, and they're sports was part of their DNA, and it drove me crazy they didn't have a Major League Baseball team. The Denver Zephyrs drew great crowds when they used to play at Mile High Stadium, and there were 2 instances where Denver was this close to not getting an expansion team, but getting an established team. And one scenario would have had a beloved Denver superstar be Ricky Henderson, and another would have been Barry Bonds in his prime, skinny Barry Bonds playing in Mile High. Could you imagine that? Maybe there wouldn't have been a need to add anything to his breakfast routine. No. But that's going to be a little preview about those alternate histories and how close they came to being a reality. But hey, my name is Paul Francis Sullivan. I'm begging you to call me Sully. You can follow me normally as the host of the Locked On MLB podcast. Follow at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. You look down there, as long as Twitter still exists, and as of this recording, it does. I'll be at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. This Bajic Loop over there, that's Paul Holden, also Paul Francis, but don't call him Sully, whatever you do. Paul, tell people where they can follow you.
You can find me at Paul Holden 33. You can also find the show at LO Rockies. And like we said, Sully's got your Rockies coverage next week. We'll also have another cameo appearance from another NL podcast taking over one of the episodes as well. But Sully, thank you again for your time. Thanks for covering. And folks, until next time, this has been the Locked On Rockies podcast. We'll see you next time.